welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about Victorian Halloween traditions while I carve the first pumpkin of the season. I have with me here my book of Mrs. Sharp's traditions, which I will be using to reference Victorian Halloween party traditions. We're not really going to be talking about the actual history of Halloween because not only would that be the longest video ever, but also it's slightly controversial in a way. Depending on where you go, there's a lot of different ideas of where different Halloween traditions originated and who really invented Halloween. So we're just going to be talking about in the Victorian era how they would celebrate these things with different games and practices and all that stuff. So I'm just going to get started cutting open this adorable little pumpkin. Speaking of pumpkin carving, one of the first Victorian traditions in this book is the pumpkin carving party. Victorian families and friends would go out to a pumpkin patch together and pick a pumpkin and then come back home and carve them. Now, of course, giving a small child a knife with which to carve a pumpkin is not exactly the smartest idea. So kids would be given things like construction paper and paint and all that kind of stuff so that they could decorate their pumpkins without actually cutting into them. The resulting pumpkins would be called pumpkin moonshines instead of jack-o'-lanterns, you know, because of the fact that they lacked the actual lantern part of the jack-o'-lantern. I'm not sure exactly why they were called moonshines, but I think that that is freaking adorable. Alrighty, time to use some ice cream scoop to scoop out my pumpkin. This is kind of tricky because this pumpkin's really small. Mostly because I'm a huge cheapskate and I didn't want to spend the money on an actual sizable pumpkin, but also because I think the small pumpkins are super cute. So a lot of the Halloween celebrations were said to have been brought over by the Scottish and other Celtic people in around the 1840s, I believe. So let's talk about some Victorian Halloween party games because they were quite creative. So a lot of the games were based around fortune telling, so sort of trying to predict what your future was going to be like and who your future spouse was going to be, things like that. The tradition of bobbing for apples was actually one of these. The idea was that you would write your name on an apple and put it into the tub of water, and then each person takes turns doing the whole dunking your head in and pulling out an apple, but whoever's name is on the apple that you pull out is going to be your future spouse. There was also apple peeling, which you would, as the title would suggest, peel an apple, but you're supposed to try and peel it, keeping the peel all in one continuous piece, and then each person, once they're done peeling their apple, tosses the apple peel over their right shoulder. Why the right shoulder, I'm not exactly sure. Then one person of the company who has decided to be the oracle will take a look at the apple peel as it's fallen on the ground and decide what letter of the alphabet it most looks like. And whatever letter it is going to be the letter of your future spouse's name. I don't know about you, but I can smell a pattern in these games. So I finished emptying out my pumpkin and I'm going to carve the face, I believe, right there. Usually for my first pumpkin of the season, I like to do a pretty traditional pumpkin with the sort of uneven teeth and everything. So I think I'm gonna go with that. This is a charcoal pencil, but it's not showing up for some reason. You know what? I think I'm just gonna try and freehand it. Another one of these Halloween games that I find particularly interesting is called walnut shell launching. So each person would pick a walnut shell half and make a little candle in it. So just stick a little wick in and pour some wax over it. And these would sort of be the little walnut boats. Then you get a tub of water and each person would launch their little boat into the sea. Everyone would sort of like nudge the boat to make the water get some waves and everything so the boats would actually move. Then depending on sort of what your boat does and where it goes in the tub, that will sort of predict what your life is going to be like. So if your boat tends to stay around the edge of the tub, then you're likely to be a homebody and possibly some sort of homemaker. If your walnut boat liked to hang out in the middle of the tub, then you were likely to be very adventurous and do lots of traveling. So basically everyone would just sort of sit around the tub and watch their boats and sort of predict what each other's lives were going to be like. So about the business of trick-or-treating. Trick-or-treating actually wasn't really a thing until the early 20th century. The first reported modern occurrence of people dressing up on Halloween in disguises like monsters and stuff was in 1898 in Vancouver, British Columbia, which I find quite interesting because I live on Vancouver Island, British Columbia. But the first known use of the actual phrase trick-or-treating wasn't used until 1927, and I think it was probably more like in the 1900s or maybe the 1910s that people started actually doing the whole going out and getting candy thing, but it really started to pick up in like the late 20s and 30s. It was kind of a fun way to lift people's spirits because of the Great Depression. Then World War II hit and there was all kinds of sugar rationing, so that made trick-or-treating kind of hard for a while. But then when sugar rationing stopped in the 1950s, it became particularly popular and a very well-known American practice to go trick-or-treating on Halloween. Here's what we got going for my little pumpkin right now. Got the classic triangle nose and some slightly off triangular eyes. Now I want to make my pumpkin have a nice big jagged smile. Something kind of random, me and my dad like to call pumpkins pumpkins, like just P-U-N-K-I-N. I'm not exactly sure when or why that started, but that's how it is. And then yesterday I was looking at some vintage Halloween ads, particularly from like the 1950s, and there was a Milky Way bar Halloween ad that actually had on it the word pumpkin spelled P-U-N-K-I-N, and I was so excited. It's such a stupid thing to get excited about, but here is said ad. I would love to know what your sort of go-to pumpkin carving face is, because what I'm doing right now is one that I do like literally every year. One more of the games that's in Mrs. Sharp's book, let's see, what's it called? It's very weird. It's called Cowling, I'm pretty sure is how you pronounce it. It's a Scottish game for Halloween. One of the company, having been blindfolded and led into the garden, pulls up the first cabbage stalk he or she touches and carries it into the house, where a fortune teller interprets it. So basically different things about the cabbage stalk will sort of say what your future spouse is going to be like. So like how much dirt is still holding on to the roots determines how much money your future spouse is supposedly going to have. And then the cabbage stalk is put over the door, I'm supposing like placed over the door frame. Then the first name of the first person who walks in the door is going to be the name of the future husband or wife. Okay, I have most of my pumpkin's face done. There's just kind of a bunch of little strings in weird places that I want to try and get rid of. So here is my first jack-o'-lantern of the season. Please give him or her a name in the comments. So this was just a quick little bonus video for this week, but I hope you liked it. Real quick before I finish off the video, I'd like to mention that I have an Etsy shop called Gwen's Vintage Box, where I'm selling vintage and antique curated boxes themed after different colors, and the link will be in the description if you want to check it out. So that would be it for today. I hope you have the most fabulous, happiest of Halloweens. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!